Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. After following James for 7 years, he said he was tired of me, turned around and found a younger, tender girl. This time I didn't make a scene. I just threw away the ring and cut up the newly bought wedding dress. Late at night, I boarded a flight and left New York. His friends were all betting on how long it would take for me to come back and reconcile. James coldly laughed and said, "It won't be more than 3 days before she comes back crying, begging me." But 3 days turned into more days, and there was still no news from me. James couldn't sit still anymore and took the initiative to call me for the first time. "Kathy, come back when you've had enough of this quarrel." However, on the other end of the phone, a man's low laugh was heard. "Mr. James, you can't make up with a girl the next day. Otherwise, someone else might intervene halfway." James gritted his teeth with red eyes. "Let Kathy answer the phone." "But Mark," the man said with a low laugh, "she can't answer right now. She is still unconscious. I need to wake her up with a kiss first." In my 7th year with James, I secretly bought a wedding dress and mustered up the courage to propose to him. But unfortunately, I arrived a few minutes late to the gathering that day. I overheard him chatting with his friends. "You know, Kathy, I've long grown tired of her," James said casually, lighting a cigarette. 7 years? Wouldn't you get tired as well if you were in my shoes?" The others laughed along. "That's true, 7 years, even an immortal beauty would lose its charm. But Kathy is really quite beautiful. Remember on James's birthday, she wore a form-fitting velvet gown, and every man in the room couldn't take their eyes off her." James indifferently replied, "I have never told a lie. If I pursue Kathy, you won't mind, right?" "Go ahead." James casually blew a smoke ring. "As long as you two don't clash." "So bold of you, not even caring about losing face. You're willing to take over a woman James is tired of." There was another round of laughter. That night, I didn't enter the private room, casually making an excuse of a headache, and went back home. James didn't ask further and just hung up the phone. It was probably that night that I finally made up my mind about the breakup. Within a few days, rumors began to spread in the circle. James was now pursuing a sophomore girl, a student at the Performing Arts Academy, young, tender, and innocent. His pursuit was always grand and extravagant, just like when he pursued me back then. He would shout to the world, throwing houses, cars, and jewelry as he pleased. That young girl hadn't experienced such attention before and quickly fell for him. And it wasn't long before James brought her to a gathering that our friends put together. As soon as they entered, everyone fell silent. Some of the girls who were on good terms with me looked at me with concern. I smiled and asked, "Why is everyone silent now? What are you all looking at me for?" James sat with the young girl, and only then did he look directly at me. "Kathy, today is a good opportunity for me to speak my mind. All these years of on and off relationship have become dull, and the feelings have long faded." I clenched my hand tightly, the ring on my middle finger digging deep into my flesh, but I couldn't feel the pain. "Vivian is young, naive, and I genuinely like her. I don't want to disappoint her," James said as he touched the girl's hair. "I understand," I nodded. "We'll just be friends from now on. If you ever need help, feel free to ask me. As long as you're in New York, I'll still look out for you." James asked, "Should I have the driver drop you off?" "No need, I'll just take a taxi," I replied. I left the room, closed the door behind me, and overheard someone saying, "How long do you think Kathy will hold out this time?" 2 days. "She seems a little more upset this time, so I bet a week." Another voice chimed in. James, seeing the door not completely closed, laughed coldly. "It won't be more than 3 days before she comes back crying. It's always been like this for so many years. Growing tired of watching. After all, how could Kathy leave you? Everyone knows she loves you like crazy." I laughed self-deprecatingly, clutching my handbag tightly as I walked briskly towards the elevator. Upon returning to my apartment, I went to the corner of the closet and took out that wedding dress. I had waited 6 months to get it, but unfortunately, I would never have the chance to wear it. It was a custom-made dress, non-returnable. So I found a pair of scissors and cut it up. After all, leaving it here would only bother James. When I left, I took off the ring and placed it on the coffee table. I didn't take much with me except for a few personal items. I didn't want anything else. After some thought, I left a note for James. I left the house and everything inside to him to dispose of as he pleased, without asking me. I booked an early morning flight to London. Anna, my best friend, got married there earlier, and I figured it was a good time to visit her and relax. Anna invited me for a shopping trip and afternoon tea. In the evening, there was a small get-together with our old classmates and friends. After a few rounds of drinks, someone else pushed open the door. A few female classmates immediately brightened up. "Mark, it's quite a rare sight to see you here tonight. What brings you to the party?" Anna quietly pinched me and whispered, "Kathy, did Mark come for you?" I, slightly intoxicated, looked towards the man. He was taller than James, clad in a black coat over a matching business suit, with a handsome face, a good physique, and incredibly long legs. I squinted for a while before withdrawing my gaze and shaking my head. "Can't be. We haven't been in touch for all these years." Anna ignored me and called out to Mark. "Mark, could you please help me with sending Kathy home later? We've been drinking, and I'm worried about her taking a taxi." I looked blankly at Mark. As the elevator door opened, Mark suddenly kissed me. I was already tipsy and overwhelmed by his forceful and domineering kiss, which almost took my breath away. Mark saw the security camera and turned his head, changed the angle, and kissed me again. Just as we entered the room, he suddenly stopped me. "Kathy, if you regret it now, I can stop." "Regret what?" I looked up at him, fingers playing with his tie, pulling him closer. "You've nearly kissed my lips off, and now you're saying stop?" Mark suddenly chuckled and reached out, lightly skimming his fingertip over my slightly swollen lips. "Well, even if you regret it later, it won't matter. Our first time together." Mark didn't even make it to the bedroom. Pressed against the wall, it was a bit painful, and I couldn't help but bite him. "Mark, do you even know how to cherish and respect a delicate woman?" His scalding palm rested on my back. The collision was fierce. Finally, panting heavily, he kissed my neck and said, "Kathy, I'm having a hard time controlling myself." 5 minutes later, I finally understood what he meant. Mark carried me back to the bedroom, and I buried my face in the pillow, laughing uncontrollably. "Mark, how long has it been since you were with a woman?" I joked. He glanced at me calmly and replied, "It's been quite a while. I've been busy with work these past years." I looked at him in surprise and gradually smiled. A little while later, tears suddenly streamed down my face. "I'm sorry, Mark, I've made a mess of you." Mark, flustered by my tears, hurriedly wiped them away, but they just wouldn't stop. "Why are you apologizing?" Perhaps it was my tears, but Mark seemed uneasy. He awkwardly wiped my tears, but they wouldn't stop. "I shouldn't have enticed you." "But you did." Mark bent down, cupping my face and looking at me seriously. "Kathy, now that you have enticed me, you must do so all the way." On the 7th day in London, my friend Jack from New York suddenly sent me a message. "Kathy, when are you coming back? We all miss you. Stephen's birthday is in a couple of days. Why don't you come back and join us?" "I don't have plans to come back for now," I replied. "Tell him I'll send a gift instead." "All right, just take care of yourself," Jack replied. In a private room, Jack handed the phone to James. "James, take a look. Why don't you call Kathy? She'll definitely listen to you." James looked at the words on the screen coldly, then crushed his cigarette and stood up, saying, "Love or not, it's better to be dead outside." "Don't be angry, James. Kathy must be feeling upset." Someone tried to console him. "She even took off the ring this time. She seems genuinely heartbroken. What more does she want after you've broken up?" James suddenly became furious. "Listen carefully, no one is allowed to approach her. And don't you dare look for her, even in death." Okay, we won't look for her. Calm down. I just had a bleeding stomach from drinking a couple of days ago, and ended up in the hospital. When Kathy was around, you never had stomach problems. She had only been gone for a few days, and you've already made yourself like this." Every time someone mentioned Kathy, James' expression would darken. In the end, he grabbed his jacket and angrily left. Slamming the door behind him, James walked downstairs. The cold wind blew against his face, but the anger in his chest still lingered. That woman Kathy really had some nerve. It had been 7 days, and she hadn't even sent a text or made a call. Is it all just a game? With a cold expression, James added Kathy's number to the blacklist. "You better not come back crying and begging me, Because this time I won't be as soft-hearted as before, he muttered to himself. Just as he finished typing the last line and formatting, Mark called. During my college years, I started writing magazine columns and had some success. So after graduation, I decided to do it full-time. Relying on this talent, my income was pretty good. The job was flexible. I could travel anywhere with my laptop. So after the breakup, I didn't have to stay in New York and be tormented. Kathy, what do you want to eat tonight? Mark's voice came through clearly, calming the busyness of the afternoon. My brain felt like it had been dead for millions of years. So tired. You decide. How about Japanese food? I know a place with great salmon sashimi that you'll love, Mark suggested. I always used to order salmon sashimi when eating Japanese food, but later on, James didn't like raw foods much, so I rarely had it. But I vaguely remember that Mark's diet was always light. Mark, you don't have to accommodate me like this. I'm not picky anymore, but I suddenly really feel like having it, I said. Listening to him talk about this, I couldn't help but feel tempted. All right, let's have Japanese food then. I'll come pick you up now. Mark took me to a Japanese restaurant in London that had been open for many years. The storefront was old, the place was small, but the business was exceptionally good. Seeing Mark, who was impeccably dressed in such an environment, was quite a contrast. I watched as he carefully wiped the chair with a napkin and skillfully poured drinks for us. A gentleman like him did these trivial things without any hesitation. Mark, your ex-girlfriend really trained you well. I couldn't help but comment. Unlike me, with 7 years of on and off relationships, it was only at the beginning when James was pursuing me that I enjoyed being taken care of and cherished. Later, during the year we lived together after college, I turned into a housewife figure, taking care of his diet and daily life as if I were his maid. But now I finally understand. I loved him to the point of losing myself, forgetting even the basics of putting oneself first. How could I expect his love to never waver? While helping me with the food, Mark casually asked, "Where did you hear that I had an ex-girlfriend?" I paused for a moment. Back in college, weren't you always with a girl? It seemed like you had grown up together since childhood. You mean Coco? Mark chuckled. We did grow up together, it's true, but I never dated her, and I never liked her. At most, I treated her like a sister. Have you not dated anyone in all these years? Mark calmly rolled up his shirt sleeves. Had some acquaintances, brief interactions. If it didn't work out, we parted ways. And there hasn't been anyone since then. I lowered my gaze, thinking back to that night when he revealed his true feelings. It seemed like the credibility of his words had increased tenfold. Kathy, I won't do it again next time, Mark suddenly said, leaving me puzzled. Won't do what? I asked, but he turned his face away and coughed lightly, probably irritated by the wasabi sauce, his ears turning alarmingly red. You'll find out later, Mark replied as he handed me a piece of salmon sashimi. Go ahead, eat. It was only when he had taken me back to the hotel, and after I had showered and he had carried me from the bathroom to the bed, that I suddenly understood what he meant with that earlier sentence. At that moment, I felt like I was falling apart. The strands of hair at my temples had been dampened by sweat countless times. Even my fingertips were trembling. But Mark's intentions didn't come to an end. Mark? I couldn't help but glare at him, but there was a hint of moisture in my eyes, making me appear even more inviting. Calling his name felt almost coquettish, not genuinely angry. Mark lowered his head and gently kissed me. Kathy, are you comfortable? I shook my head, refusing to answer him. Unfazed, he shifted from a storm of passion to a gentle and tender rhythm, wearing me down. I couldn't resist. The teasing tears of a physical nature started to flow from the corners of my eyes. Mark! My nails scratched at his lower back, my voice now carrying a difficult sob. Mark, are you comfortable now? Mark too had turned red with restraint, his arm muscles taut, beads of sweat dripping down from his forehead, as if he was on the verge of reaching the clouds but always falling just short.
Tortured, he cried softly, I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable.
His hot palm gripped my waist tightly. The force was almost like a siege assault, shattering my voice into a chaotic mess. As my consciousness faded away, Mark whispered softly in my ear, Kathy, as long as you're comfortable, never leave me, okay? On Stephen's birthday night, the gift I bought in London was delivered to him through a friend. James was sitting on the couch, smoking, the bottle of alcohol in front of him already half empty. The gift for Stephen was chosen by Mark and me. A pair of antique cufflinks from a high-end brand that he really liked. Stephen smiled a bit awkwardly, watching James' reaction carefully and quickly handing the gift to his girlfriend. "Give it to me," James suddenly said. Stephen was taken aback but didn't say much, quickly passing the box over to James. James stared at the cufflinks. The brand's logo was discreet, not prominent, but James looked at them for a while. "Put it away." He closed the box and pushed it aside. Stephen let out a sigh of relief, quickly extending his hand to take it, but James suddenly grabbed the empty bottle in front of him and slammed it fiercely on the coffee table. Glass shattered, leaving a long blood streak on his hand. The suite immediately turned chaotic. "Why are you suddenly so angry, James?" someone exclaimed. "The wound isn't light. The bleeding won't stop. We need to go to the hospital." James stood there unmoving, his face dark and full of hostility. "Kathy has never bought anything from this brand," he said in a low, hoarse tone. Stephen nervously said, "It's nothing. Kathy probably just picked it randomly. After all, it's not your birthday." "James, Kathy has been thinking about what to get you for half a year in advance. You are in her heart in a way that all of us combined could never be. Everyone knows how much Kathy cares about you, how much she treasures you," a friend said. James scoffed. "She cares about me?" The noise in the room gradually quieted down, and James' cold laughter silenced the room. "So everyone's speechless now? Don't want to say anything?" he teased. James laughed again. "Why is everyone silent now? Don't get upset. The blood's flowing even more now. James, you know Kathy's temper the best." Sitting quietly in the corner, Wendy suddenly spoke up. "Actually, I've been wanting to say this for a long time. The things you did before were too hurtful. Kathy is a girl. Even if you don't like her anymore, you should still part ways amicably." "Who said I have to part ways amicably with her?" James laughed scornfully and coldly. "She's been with me for 7 years. I can even raise a dog to know it well." Wendy chuckled softly. "Have you ever thought how many girls stay for 7 years? What if Kathy never comes back?"
Impossible.
No one noticed the subtle tremor in James's tone. What in this world is truly impossible? When the heart is shattered and the warmth has long gone, how difficult is it to think about feeling warm again? "James, don't do something you'll regret," Wendy said, and without further ado, she grabbed her bag and headed out. Sitting not far away, David, whose wife had been married for 2 years, gazed at her with a dark and uncertain look. Was she feeling sorry for Kathy, defending her, or was she accusing David of being a bad husband to her? "Aren't you going to see your sister-in-law off, David?" David smirked, lit a cigarette and said, "Who's your sister-in-law?" "Your sister-in-law is filming right now. She won't come out of the set until next month. Just ignore me." The friend shook his head in resignation. David remained non-committal. Kathy had no family burden and could earn her own money. If they separated, her quality of life might decline slightly. But Wendy had a family situation like an abyss without a bottom and a bedridden older brother. She couldn't leave him. Even if she had 10 times more courage, she wouldn't dare. "I had just hung up the phone when Mark hugged me from behind. He nuzzled his jaw against my neck and didn't say a word. I couldn't help but laugh." "What's up, Kathy? Are you going back?" "Go where?" "Back to New York?" "I don't have plans to go back temporarily, but who knows in the future? After all, I haven't done anything shameful. Why shouldn't I go back? My family is still there." Mark fell silent again. I finally realized. He realized his unspoken question. "Are you going to reconcile with James? Are you going to?" I said firmly, "Absolutely not. Do you believe me?" Mark lowered his gaze, and his high-bridged nose lightly brushed against my cheek. "I want to believe," Mark said. "I also have my pride, my self-respect. Do you still have feelings for him?" I pondered seriously. If I say I have none at all, it's not realistic after all these years. Suddenly, Mark lightly bit me. "Enough, Kathy. Listen to me. But if I say this feeling is not reluctance or unwillingness, it's also not true." I gently touched Mark's face. Breaking up with him didn't cause me much pain, so maybe I don't love him anymore. Perhaps since he became apathetic towards this relationship, I had already prepared for the breakup. I won't do it. I won't be indifferent, won't be indecisive, won't make you cry or feel miserable. Mark hugged me tighter and tighter until finally he kissed me. Kathy, be with me. But I didn't respond to his kiss, and in the end I gently pushed him away. Mark, I'm sorry. Why are you apologizing? His eyes turned slightly red as he looked at me. It's my own issue. I avoided his gaze. I don't want to talk about relationships anymore. Then what are these days between us? Mark grabbed my shoulders, his voice trembling. Kathy, what do you consider me? I clenched my fists and took a deep breath. Just consider it as meeting each other's needs. If you wish, we can continue this kind of relationship. If you meet someone you like, you can end it any time. What kind of relationship? A tool to meet physiological needs. You can think of it that way. I refused to look up at him, afraid that I might not be able to hold back tears. Kathy. Mark's eyes were red as he released my hands, slowly stepping back. He seemed to be smiling, but the smile was shattered. Kathy, you can't do this to me. Mark turned away, put on his coat, and headed out. I subconsciously took a step forward but then stopped. Mark walked to the door, grabbed the handle, then suddenly turned to look at me, even managing a smile at me. Sorry, I just want to be alone for a while. I nodded. Okay, I won't disturb you. Give me some time. Kathy, wait for my answer. As Mark left, I felt like I had lost all strength and slowly sank onto the sofa. A feeling of anguish that I couldn't quite describe filled my heart. But I was more certain than ever that I wasn't ready to truly invest in love again. To open my heart and start a new relationship, I was truly afraid. Afraid that in the end it would be another case of mutual antipathy. I was afraid of the way that person would look at me, from blazing passion to indifference and then to cold disdain. I didn't want to repeat the same mistakes. But maybe I shouldn't have provoked Mark. If from the beginning I knew he liked me, that night I definitely wouldn't have let him drive me back to the hotel. It was almost 3 a.m. when Mark returned to the hotel where I was staying. He got out of the car but didn't go inside, instead leaning against the countless windows were lit up, and he couldn't figure out which one was Kathy's. But he knew she was here. He knew she was in London, in the same city as him. Knowing that if he walked in 10 minutes later, he would see her felt like happiness, fulfillment. In less than 2 days, he had figured it out for himself. He had easily persuaded himself that Kathy had just ended a relationship and didn't want to date again. It was quite normal. She was disappointed and resistant towards men, relationships, and even marriage, which was even more normal. Perhaps he had been too eager and shouldn't have pressured her like that. If keeping this kind of relationship temporarily would make her comfortable, he didn't mind not having a title. What could be more painful than loving someone and not being together? If there was something more painful, it would have been about 1.5 years ago when he found out that Kathy had started living with James. At that time he had truly decided to let go. That's why he had tried blind dates and had interactions with new people trying to move on. But he had tried and found it impossible, so he had decisively ended it. No matter how much his family urged him, he never had such thoughts again. If Kathy hadn't come to London after the breakup, if that night she hadn't asked him to come up, maybe he would have been alone for the rest of his life. Mark extinguished the cigarette, his gaze gradually becoming calm and firm. But Kathy had come to London, and that night she had invited him up. If a beloved girl had come to him and he still let her slip away, then Mark, he wouldn't be qualified to have the happiness he wanted. The night before leaving London, I made an appointment to drink with Anna. How is it going with Mark? I can see the joy on your face. Your skin is so flawless. I can tell Mark is keeping you well moisturized. Maybe I shouldn't drag someone along. I don't want to fall in love, and I don't want to get married. Kathy, why do you want to punish yourself for someone else's mistakes? And besides, it's not fair to Mark. James is not a good person, but Mark is a trustworthy man. Why do you hold bias against Mark because of James? I'm not biased against him. I just haven't gotten over this hurdle yet. If you haven't gotten over this hurdle, it's either that you were controlled by James for 7 years, or you feel unworthy of true love and happiness. I was stunned by her words. Because of the torment and conflict caused by potential loss, because of the extreme lack of security, I thought every shadow was a threat. So I had subconsciously doubted everyone and everything, believing I wouldn't receive devoted love. But why couldn't I deserve true love? To disappoint someone who genuinely cares about you feels like swallowing 1,000 needles. Loving someone sincerely, heaven will surely open a new door for her. Darling, do you know how wonderful you are? Anna hugged me and gently shook me. So beautiful with a perfect figure, able to earn a living. Since college, you've been supporting me, being pretty capable and kind. If I were a man, I would marry you. You deserve to be loved, Kathy, by the best men, not wasted on a man like James. Trust me, he will regret it for the rest of his life. He will never get over losing you. Now call Mark immediately and cancel your flight ticket. I know you're planning to run away again. I looked at Anna, and my eyes gradually filled with warmth. But you said, what if Mark and I end up like this? It won't happen. Why? Because I believe a man with enough self-control and discretion, upon gaining the affections of the woman he likes, would never foolishly let her slip away like that. Do you think he's as dumb as James? I shook my head. Of course he's not like James. So call him now, darling. You can't imagine how happy he'll be. I thought Mark would be very happy, but I never expected that a 27 or 28-year-old man taking over the family business and being a successful conglomerate CEO would be as happy as a child the moment he received my call. Anna grinned at me. Kathy, are you happy? I nodded, feeling quite happy. Look, if you are happy and Mark is even happier, then that's settled, right? Anna suddenly couldn't help but laugh. I get so happy whenever I think about how unhappy James will be in the future. But who knows, maybe he already has someone new by his side. I smiled faintly. Anna, let's not mention him anymore. In that moment, I could say those words calmly and without a ripple in my heart. It's as if that person is truly no longer relevant to me. When Mark's car pulled up downstairs, I had just come out of the bar. He stood in the night wind, arms outstretched towards me. I stopped and looked at him. I have to say, he really is handsome. Every aspect of him fits my aesthetic preferences. A man can like multiple women at the same time, even straddling 2 relationships without officially breaking up. A seamless transition doesn't even count as a flaw. So dating someone after a breakup shouldn't be wrong either. I walked towards him and he came towards me with big steps. Among the hustle and bustle, Mark and I kissed as if we were alone. His heart was beating fast. I touched the back of his neck and it was hot. Mark, are you running a fever? His forehead against mine, he took a deep breath and in a low voice said, Kathy, I don't know what's happening to me. Whenever I'm with you, I feel like this. I chuckled, lifting up to kiss his chin. Maybe a few more times and you'll be fine. Mark's ears grew even redder and hotter. He cupped my face and looked into my eyes, burning with intensity. Kathy, what am I to you now? Teasing him, I asked, what do you think? A friend with benefits or a boyfriend? Before I could answer, he buried his face in my neck and softly said, don't answer. I don't want to know now. I gently circled my arms around his waist and held him closer. Don't you really want to know? My boyfriend. James parked his car at the entrance of an alley. He got out and walked deep into the alley. There lived an old tailor who had once specialized in making custom wedding dresses. With age, he had closed his door to customers long ago. But James had a way of persuading this old man. The tattered wedding dress that Kathy had sent to the old master about half a month ago was now likely to be restored completely. As he walked, James thought about what he had said 2 days ago. Girls all yearn to wear a wedding dress and marry the one they love. He had been with Kathy for 7 years, but he had never thought about proposing. He had never imagined that Kathy would have thoughts of proposing to him. He had indeed been a mess these days. But those women were just a passing fancy, nothing serious. Even Vivian, who caused Kathy to break up and leave, only piqued his interest for 3 days. After getting to know her, he found her boring, still keeping Kathy in his heart. After 7 years together, he felt tired and fed up at times, but some people are like colorless, tasteless air. You only realize their importance after losing them. In the days when Kathy was not around, he felt listless no matter what he did. When hanging out with friends, his mind was filled with thoughts of her. Especially when drunk, if Kathy was there, she would pretend to be angry and stop him. If she couldn't stop him, she would make soup for him late at night, let him rest his head on her lap, and massage his temples. Her fingers were soft, Her gentle complaints and caring murmurs annoying at the time. Now he missed them immensely. James decided that when Kathy returned, he would propose to her. He knew early on how much Kathy wanted to marry him. Marriage would bring her peace and hopefully forgiveness. The craftsman's skill was truly excellent. The wedding dress had been nearly restored to its original state. James paid and left, but his phone suddenly rang. He felt nervous until he saw Stephen's name flashing on the screen. His wildly beating heart finally calmed down. "James, I've thought about it and I need to tell you something." "What is it?" "Don't make a big deal out of it. It might just be a rumor," James said anxiously. "What's the matter with Kathy? Is she back in New York?" James suddenly felt a bit uncomfortable. How did it come to this? If Kathy was rumored to be involved with someone, why did it have to be Mark? James had never gotten along well with him. "Don't be mad, it's just hearsay, no solid evidence yet. Someone saw Kathy in London," Stephen explained. James's fingers clutching the phone tightened, but his voice remained calm. "What's she doing in London? Is she with Mark? Maybe they're just having dinner, no big deal." "I see," James said and ended the call. He clenched the large paper bag containing the wedding dress Kathy bought tighter as he walked on the cold streets of New York in early winter. He suddenly stopped at the entrance of the alley beside his car. His handsome face slowly showed a hint of a mocking smile. Then, without hesitation, he threw the beautifully crafted paper bag into the trash bin. In the month of Kathy's absence, James had sent her a message. The message was delivered successfully, but there was no response. It read, "I'm thinking of selling the apartment. What should I do with your clothes?" Maybe he forgot the note Kathy left asking him to handle everything as he saw fit, or perhaps he was just finding an excuse to reach out to her. James probably thought it was his way of offering a chance to reconcile. She'd know to take the opportunity if she was smart. He wasn't as tough-hearted as he appeared. Kathy never replied. The apartment remained unsold. Her clothes and belongings were kept as they were before. It was as if she had never left. James would come here late at night after socializing. He would lie on Kathy's bed, unable to sleep until dawn. In the third month of Kathy's absence, on a typical late night just before the clock struck midnight, James dialed Kathy's number. Kathy was a conservative and obedient girl, loved deeply by her parents. Her family was not wealthy, but she never lacked anything. Because of her natural beauty, she was heavily supervised by her elders. It wasn't until the autumn of her final year in college that Kathy began living with him. He remembered that night vividly. She was so nervous that her whole body was trembling. Her skin was flushed with a feverish heat. Beautiful as she was lying under him, she looked as fragile as if she would break. When it was all over, she cried so hard, repeatedly saying to him, "James, don't you dare bully me. Promise me you won't bully me. You have to be good to me. You have to marry me, James. We will always be together, right?" But the innocent Kathy, who believed she would be with the man she loved forever, had been lost to him for a long time. The phone rang for a while, and just when James thought she wouldn't answer, she did. At that moment he wanted to say, "Kathy, come back." But what came out of his mouth was, "Kathy, come back when you're done playing around." His foolish and ridiculous words were interrupted by a man's light laugh. That laugh felt like a block of ice hitting his head, freezing him in place. "Mr. James, you can't delay comforting a girl. Otherwise, someone might swoop in," Mark said. James spoke Mark's name with red eyes and gritted teeth. "It's me, Mark. Where's Kathy? Let her take the call." James's eyes turned bloodshot, and he clenched his phone tightly. In a trembling and low growl, he said, "Mark, if you dare take advantage of this situation, she won't be able to answer the call." Mark lowered his head and kissed his girl gently. Kathy's eyelashes still had traces of tears. Her mouth pouted with a look of resentment. His heart softened uncontrollably, and he kissed away the tear on her cheek. "She's still asleep, angry with me. I have to wake her up first," Mark said. James's voice abruptly stopped. Mark hung up the phone, turned off his mobile phone, and kissed Kathy's slightly swollen lips. "Darling, wake up. I had thought about what it would be like to meet James again. He's well off and inherently proud. We broke up amicably. If one day we really meet again, either he will ignore me or we can just politely greet each other. After all, my family and friends are all in New York. James and I also have some mutual friends. It's impossible to never have any intersections in our lives. But I never imagined that the young master who was always praised and held in high regard would have such a moment of showing a lack of composure. Back then I was in a very good mood because I had slept well, wearing a new nude pink cashmere skirt and beautifully done makeup. I looked like a plump and sweet peach. I was walking out of the revolving door, arm in arm with Mark, laughing and chatting when I saw James getting out of the car. I was stunned and my steps halted. Mark gently held my hand as James got closer. James' shirt was a bit wrinkled and he wasn't wearing a tie. There was an unmistakable exhaustion on his face, furrowed brows and bloodshot eyes. People were bustling around us, the music fountain playing cheerful tunes not far away. This scene seemed like a slow-motion shot from a movie, except I wasn't just a spectator. I was one of the unexpectedly caught-up protagonists. Perhaps James' unexpected appearance was what made the moment so peculiar. Mark instinctively shielded me behind him, but James remained calm, looking at me with the same tenderness as when we were deeply in love, softly calling my name. Kathy. I stood there motionless. The cheerful music still echoed in my ears, but for some reason, there was an indescribable sadness in my heart. Maybe it was because of the hurtful words I heard that night. Maybe it was because of being abruptly told to break up that day. Or maybe it was because, after loving foolishly for 7 years, I had managed to let go in just 7 days. Kathy, I've come to take you back to New York, James said. He never once looked at Mark. His eyes were fixed on my face, filled with an unspeakable tenderness. I can't even remember the last time he looked at me with such eyes before we broke up. James stopped about a meter away from me. Kathy, let's go back and get married. Let's live well together in the future. Okay? His words were so sincere that I almost believed that the James who said he wanted to give another girl a title not long ago was just my imagination. It's too late, James. Hearts shattered cannot be pieced back together. And the new heart that grew in the swamp is already occupied by someone else. I gently shook my head. James, please go. James insisted. Kathy, I never touched Vivian. I broke up with her in less than 3 days. I've already had the wedding dress you bought repaired. And our engagement rings, I've kept them safe. Kathy, I even had a diamond ring customized. I'm serious. James' eyes were growing redder, his voice trembling slightly as he held out the exquisite diamond ring box to me, full of longing and hope. Looking at him, I couldn't deny that I still felt a twinge of pain. But it was just that, a slight discomfort. James, I have a boyfriend now. I tightly held Mark's hand, and walking from behind him to stand next to him, the color drained from James' face almost instantly. His gaze slowly lowered, finally settling on the interlocked fingers of Mark and me. Our middle fingers wore matching rings just like how it used to be with him and me. Kathy, are you serious? I took a deep breath, turned my head to Mark, then nodded firmly. Yes, I am serious. James suddenly chuckled softly. Do you think he is serious about you? How much sincerity do you think he has left? 2 years ago, he fought to the death with me over a project. Now he's pursuing you again. Kathy, do you think there isn't a hint of rivalry in his mind? Kathy, you're still so naive. The lively music had stopped at some point, and James' voice fell silent. There was a moment of emptiness in my ears. Then there was a faint sound of something breaking lightly. And after that sound, there was an overwhelming sense of relief. You see, I don't even have that little bit of sorrow anymore. It's just a pity. Why must there always be regrets in life? Up until today, I never regretted loving James. Whatever happened, good or bad, was part of my experience. But at this moment, I couldn't help but feel remorse. Why did it take me 7 years to realize that James had never truly valued me? Mark, with concern written all over his face, pulled me into his embrace. My face was somewhat pale, but I still smiled at him and shook my head. I'm fine, Mark. You go to the car first, I'll handle this. I want to be with you. I squeezed his hand tightly, refusing to let go. Mark stared at me for a moment and then suddenly leaned down to give me a passionate kiss. Kathy, I've always lived with a clear conscience, never regretted my decisions. But right now, I truly regret not snatching you away from him earlier. What right do you have to compete with me? What kind of man takes advantage of someone's vulnerability? James, You are not worthy of the 7 years of affection and love Kathy has for you. Perhaps it was this sentence that completely enraged James. He had never lost his composure like this before, saying things without a filter. Then what about you, Mark? What kind of man are you to pursue a woman who was with me for 7 years? What do you like about her? Do you truly like Kathy? Or do you like my woman? Mark's fist collided with James' face, and James was not one to back down. They quickly became embroiled in a physical altercation, bruises and cuts appearing on their bodies and faces. The security guards finally managed to separate them, but both men still glared at each other, refusing to back down. Can we please stop? I was both angry and anxious, my voice trembling with tears. James, with a grim expression, said, Kathy, you saw it. Mark was the one who threw the first punch. This matter between us is far from over. Yes, he threw the first punch, James. I'll have him apologize to you. Whatever resolution you want, we'll cooperate. Kathy, aren't you going to protect him? Mark was getting agitated. I calmed Mark down. Apologize to James on behalf of Mark. James, how do you want to resolve this? Mark emphatically pointed to his injured face. Do you see this wound, Kathy? It hurts a lot. I glanced at it and calmly said, I'll call an ambulance for you, and we'll cover all expenses. Kathy, you know that's not what I want. James attempted to reach for me, but I dodged it. All the hardened emotions on James' face shattered, leaving a look of pure grief. But my heart felt truly calm and undisturbed. Mark suddenly winced in pain. Kathy, do you see how my face is ruined? I quickly turned to face the man in front of me. His lips cut, eyes swollen, blood on his chin, quite a sight. I grabbed some tissues and started to wipe his wounds. Ouch! Kathy, be careful, it hurts. Mark exaggeratedly grimaced, but I scolded him quietly, still treating his wounds gently. We need to go to the hospital to get stitches, Mark pleaded. Stay with me, I'm afraid of needles. I rolled my eyes but reluctantly agreed. Mark then pulled me into a tight hug. And I want you to kiss me, it hurts so much. I tiptoed and planted a gentle kiss on his injured area. James fell silent. The sunset elongated his figure quietly. Perhaps it was when Kathy was wiping Mark's face with bloodstains or when she was consoling him with a kiss that James finally realized, clear as day, that Kathy truly no longer loved him. Wendy's question that day had now become reality. Kathy would never return to him. He thought he could easily let go of a 7-year relationship. He thought he was the one always in control. But at that moment he realized he was the one who couldn't let go. Kathy was the string flying the kite. Once the string broke, the kite lost its direction and could never find its way. I watched as James turned and walked towards his car, his lonely figure fading away. The setting sun was swallowed by the horizon, turning the sky into a faint rose blue. As James' car slowly drove off, I saw the 7 years of Kathy's life, from 17 to 24, pass. With the roaring car, the memories vanished. I knew from that day onwards James would just be like any other ordinary name in this world. I wouldn't deliberately forget, but I would never actively remember. Kathy, Mark gently held me in his arms. I turned around, looked up at him and smiled softly. Let's go to the hospital. On the night Mark proposed after drinking a lot, he held me and said a lot of things. But what I remembered seemed to be just those 2 simple sentences. Kathy, we will never have that kind of 7 years. Kathy, we will never break up. Everyone must truly believe in their vows at that moment. Later, when breaking the promise, I would wonder how anyone could believe in such things. But I was willing to believe in Mark. Actually, I believed in myself. I believed that I deserved to be loved, and I believed that sincerity would not always be in vain. The day Mark and I got engaged, I received a gift sent from New York. It was the wedding dress I had bought before. It had been repaired by a tailor, James. There was also a card. In the box, the handwriting on it was James. He said, Kathy, I will always wait for you. Mark was by my side and also saw that card. He smiled confidently and kissed me hard on the face, but I wouldn't give him a chance. But that night, the wedding dress disappeared, and I had long stopped caring about such trivial matters. In the 3rd year of our marriage, Mark and I had our daughter, Candy. Not long after our daughter was born, James sent many valuable gifts. I asked Mark for his opinion. He was still confident but very ungenerous. Our daughter doesn't lack these things. Let's donate them to the orphanage. Look at him at his age, not getting married, always eyeing other people's wives and kids, trying to cause trouble. I couldn't help but smile and thought, why does he care about other people's business? Mark somehow became happy. In front of all the servants and maids in the room, he picked me up and spun around. Kathy, you just said something really nice. Can you say it again? What did I say? Hey, put me down first. My head is spinning. But Mark didn't let go. He sat down, held me in his arms, and kissed me repeatedly. It's that thing you just said. Why do we care about other people's business? I felt amused but also a bit of unexplainable heartache. Anna had once told me secretly, the 2 years after I graduated from college were the toughest for Mark. But he had never mentioned it to me when we were together. He never showed any negative emotions in front of me. Why should we care about other people's business? The most important thing is to live our own lives well. After saying this, he raised his hand and hooked his neck. I kissed his slightly red ears and whispered in a very low voice, Husband, our daughter is 2 months old today. Let's sleep early tonight. When Kathy's daughter was 3 years old, their family of 3 returned to New York for a visit, staying for several months. They had many mutual friends who almost had parties every day. Naturally, I wouldn't attend. But after each party, I couldn't help but ask about her. They said Kathy had gone to Paris for 2 years after her marriage. During those 2 years, Mark tirelessly commuted between London and Paris without complaint. Later, Kathy returned to London to start her own magazine and became the editor-in-chief. Mark unconditionally supported all her decisions and choices. The only thing he wasn't quite satisfied with was her frequent overtime. She could have been a pampered lady, but she chose not to. She became more and more beautiful, but she was more than just beautiful. Their relationship grew stronger. Their daughter was very pretty, just like Kathy when she was young. Little did she know there was a picture of her at the age of 5 in my wallet. New York is so big, yet the circle is small. But I never ran into Kathy even once. One afternoon by chance I saw their daughter Candy at a buffet. She was hiding behind the bar, secretly eating a box of ice cream. Like a cute little squirrel, her mouth bulging. My steps involuntarily stopped. I couldn't take my eyes off her. After a while, I heard Kathy calling out her name. Candy also heard, her eyes widened in fear, clutching the ice cream box, not knowing what to do. I walked over, inexplicably crouched down and asked her softly, Are you afraid your mom will find out you're secretly eating ice cream? She nodded, her big eyes rolling around, particularly clever. Do you want Uncle to help you hide? She hesitated for a moment, looking at me for a while. It was as if she was making sure I wasn't a bad person before nodding again. I picked her up. She was tiny, soft, and fragrant, lying in my arms. Her little hands played with the buttons on my suit, and suddenly, in a childish voice, she asked, Uncle, do you know me? My throat seemed to be clogged with something so bitter, and everything in front of me gradually became blurred. If time could go back to that year, that night, I would never let it all happen again. Kathy would have been my wife. We would have gotten married in New York, had children. She wouldn't have been named Candy. She would have been our daughter. I lifted my face, held back the tears, and smiled at her. Yes, Uncle knows you. Do you know my name? Her soft little hands wrapped around me. I'll tell you secretly, my name is Candy. It's because Daddy Mark and Mommy Kathy kissed each other that I exist. Really? That's a lovely name. I kissed her soft cheek. All right, we can't hide for too long or your mommy will worry. She obediently nodded. Then I'll just take one more bite of ice cream, just one bite. She took a big bite, looking mischievously at me like a little cat. I ruffled her hair. Go find your mommy now. I watched her walk away. Her princess dress was like a blooming flower flourishing in Kathy's arms from a distance. I didn't even glance at Kathy a second time. I was afraid that I might inexplicably shed tears in the crowded lobby. Kathy wouldn't care about anything related to me, but I'm sure Mark would find it ridiculous. The first half of my life was so absurd, so ridiculous. And the remaining half, even this absurdity and ridiculousness became nothing but wishful thinking.